Welcome back to Dynamics Unplugged. Today I'm going to be answering a question I heard a lot last week while on site in Florida at the User Group Summit for Dynamics. And that question happened in a couple of different places. One, it happened in a session I did called the Master Plan, which was supposed to represent a day in the life of master planning in Dynamics 365. And that really was from the perspective of looking at how to use planning in terms of what your actual S&OP processes are for your organization. What are the key KPIs? Are you make to order? Are you make to stock? What are the decoupling points? What strategies are you deploying? Are you using forecasting? Are you using safety stock? Are you using DDMRP and other topics of that nature? And that question that I heard in that session and in an Ask the Expert supply chain roundtable was, why does MRP ask me to push out customer orders? Why is it telling me that I should be delaying customer orders? That really should be the last thing we want to do as an organization is push the ship date. So I guess I want to start with one, what is the setup that does that? What actually is the systematic configuration that drives the system to tell you that? And then two, get back to the point of why you would want to do that in the first place. What is the business reason for delaying a customer order and comparing that to other alternatives? So the first part, this is a little bit of a rehash if you've watched some of the sessions we've done on coverage groups and other parameters. But the thing that really controls that is our action and our delay messages. Calculated delays are what used to be called in previous versions of Dynamics AX futures messages. And the purpose of these messages is to warn us that orders should be pushed out based on known information. And the reason for this is master planning is just math. If I have an order that has a ship date in the past, the earliest ship date I can give it is today. And if it has a lead time, the earliest ship date I can do it is even further in the future. Dynamics has been doing this since as long as I can remember, at least as far back as AX 4.0, maybe 14 years ago. The system knows what the lead times are. It knows what the dates on the sales order are. It doesn't know that you can expedite a purchase order in less days than the lead time is currently stated. It doesn't know that you can accept partials on shipments or on deliveries to resolve conflicts for customer delays. So really, it's just saying based on the known lead times, your current on hand, the current math we've generated to see when you'll have enough inventory, we don't think you can confidently hit the current ship date of that sales order, and we need to delay it to something that's more realistic based on the known lead time and when that supply will be coming in. So enabling calculated delays and giving them a time fence is what will allow master planning to give us those suggested days. If we don't have this parameter selected, then you will not get messages that tell you to push out a customer ship date. So number one is enabling this parameter. Once that is enabled, master planning will run and it will project your inventory. It will look at your on hand. It will look at your upcoming supply and demand based on your time fences and your settings in your master plans. And if it sees that a order should be delayed, and this could be a production order that should be pushed out, this could be a sales order that should be pushed out, it's going to create a value or a record in this calculated delays form. So this form is based on when master planning was run. If we take a look at this first line here, this is a great example. This is a sales order that has a desired date, which is really the current expected ship date of 8/14. Well, that was nearly 2 months ago or more than 2 months ago. So the earliest we can ship to this customer is today, which is 10/19, and we can see it's actually suggesting 10/31 as a date, and that's likely because this item has a lead time. So let's look at a couple things. First, let's go to the sales order itself. And we can see here the sales order, if we click on the delivery tab, it does have a requested ship date of 8/14. Now, if we had a confirmed ship date, that would override this. There are multiple dates here in play. The requested ship date is automatically populated when we create a sales order line and can be manually manipulated based on what type of delivery date control you're using. We had that session on delivery date control and how to calculate those dates. And then we have the confirm ship date, which is what date we actually expect it to ship. My recommendation would be to update that date to reality. It shouldn't be left in the past. If you're worried about capturing metrics about what the customer actually wants, that's why you have sales order confirmations. You confirm the dates and post a confirmation based on the agreement with the customer. But to drive planning and production correctly and to have a real current state of your supply chain, you should be updating that date on a regular basis, even if that means you have to recalculate delivery date control. So this current order right here is being delayed because it's saying we wanted to ship it by 8/14. We currently don't have the supply. And if we were to go to product and supply, and we're going to look at our net requirements, we'll see what that inventory projection, that landscape is. So right now, we don't even have on hand for this item. So we look in that warehouse, we don't have on hand. We look in this warehouse, we don't have on hand, and so on. So at the earliest, if we don't have on hand and we don't have a purchase order to procure this item, because this happens to be a purchase item, not a manufactured item, as you can see up here on the right for all the warehouses that stock this item, it's going to rely on that purchase order lead time. So today is 10/19. If master planning had just run overnight, we'll go to this item. And we're going to go ahead and check what the purchase lead time is. So under manage inventory, we'll look at our default order settings. And we can see it does have a purchase lead time of 10 days. So the current date, 10/19, we don't have an existing purchase order out there with a date it's coming in. It's saying, well, if we place the order now, based on the current lead time, the earliest we'd receive it in is 10/31. And that's why it's suggesting we push out this customer sales order date to a later date. The lead time isn't the only factor there. If you have any buffer time, that's included via your coverage groups or your master plan, that would be included as well. So that could be issue margins, safety margins, and receipt margins that also affect that date. So the reason we're getting the messages is, one, we've enabled them. We've asked the system to tell us when to delay something based on the math it's doing. Because once again, that's really what master planning is doing. It's doing math based on known information, resource capacity, lead times, on-hand inventory. It's not an ESP module. It's not a mind reader module. It, once again, doesn't know those conversations that you're having offline with your vendor to expedite something as a priority delivery, unless you go ahead and update the dates on your purchase orders as well. It doesn't know about partials or additional capacity that you could throw at the resource if you're not actually applying that capacity in the ERP system. And what I would argue is this is why you as planners exist. You exist to make those business decisions that are over and above what the system can do. The system can work with the information that you provide it, but ultimately you're going to decide if that customer order really should be delayed or if there's something else you can do in production or purchasing to avoid that delay. If you didn't want to change the sales order and instead live with those older dates, you can filter them out. You can disable calculated delays, but then you have to also be ready to live with the consequences of those, because they're going to drive dates on other purchase orders, on production schedules, because they're living there in the past with old data. So master planning won't be able to give you the most accurate picture if you leave those dates in the past, because those dates then have a knock-on effect of the entire supply chain. So what else can we do, I guess, would be the logical next question. We understand now why delays get generated. We understand the impact to the sales lead time for generating those dates. Are there other things we can do? One of them, for example, would be delivery alternatives, which was something that was introduced in Dynamics 365. And that's where we can start to source products that might have multiple different options for delivery. So an item, for example, that's stocked in multiple warehouses, that has multiple vendors, intercompany inventory, and we can see, are there alternatives to shipping the sales order. Maybe right now it's shipping out of site 2, and we can alternatively ship it out of site 1 at an earlier date because of a better vendor agreement or location of the country. So now we can look at what those options are, for example. So here we see all the sites and warehouses and their modes of delivery, if they have any associated transport time associated with them, if they have any current on hand or reserved inventory associated with them that can be reallocated, and the impact of selecting those alternative sources for delivery. So if you look on this particular one, my current ship date is 8/14/2022. If I were to update to ship out of this uh, site and warehouse instead, it would update my ship date to 10/29, and other impacts as well on the sourcing of that inventory. So delivery alternatives is not always on the planning side. This is more on the customer service, customer facing sales order side, but in line with the entire S&OP process and sales, procurement, planning, and production working together to align those dates to meet your customer goals, to meet your delivery goals with your carriers, and to meet any SLAs even you have with your vendors to make sure that they're hitting the appropriate lead times that you've agreed with them. So I say all this to reiterate the fact that master planning is a module to give you suggestions based on the data that you provided. And if that data is not realistic to your business, then it's going to be generating output that's not realistic to what you can do. But they are suggestions. These actions and calculated delays don't automatically apply. The user must use that information to make the best business decision for them. And once again, that's why planners exist, and that's why good planners are worth their weight in gold. So I hope this helps, and we'll talk to you next time on Dynamics Unplugged.